Hello all, it's me, James. I'm back again. I've, it's been a little while since I've been around. You may have seen my, my interview with Rob, if you happen to tune into his channel. But, I thought, even though I haven't been streaming a lot lately, we're coming to the end of the year. We're coming to around that time when a lot of people like to talk about their best, their favorite games that they played this year. And even though I did miss out on quite a few games, I mean, I didn't even get to pick up a Switch, so I never got to play any Mario Odyssey, Mario and Rabbids. There's plenty more games that I, wanted to play this year that I didn't get a chance to. But I surprisingly did not find it hard at all to find a list, or to make a list of 10 games that I didn't, really like this year. So, without further ado, I've made a little low tech solution here for going through my games, but yeah, I thought I'd go through those for you today and just kind of give my opinion on some of the best this year. So without further ado, my number 10 pick, we're going to count down. My number 10 pick is Ukulele. Wow, that looks like shit. Okay, let's try and turn that brightness down a little. My number 10 pick is Ukulele. There we go. That's a little better, eh? Okay. Ukulele was one of the only games I've ever backed on Kickstarter, but with good reason. I mean, it was a reunion of a ton of Rareware developers that had gone on to bigger and some may say better things after Microsoft bought them. They wanted to make a game in the style of Banjo-Kazooie, which I was never the biggest fan of, but I was a fan of Rare's other games back in the day, and a lot of talent from not just Banjo-Kazooie, but Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong 64 came back for this game. So I was very interested to see what they could do without a big publisher kind of standing in the way of a return of, the 3D platformer, which we hadn't seen in a very long time. I mean, they got back Grant Kirkhope to do the music as well. He's got some pretty good games under his belt, including Banjo-Kazooie. And his music, along with the art style, along with kind of the classic platforming mechanics, really came together for a very nostalgic experience that I felt like nothing I'd really played in a very long time. So I definitely would count Ukulele. Even though I should have played it more, I would count that as one of my top games I played this year for sure. The next game is Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, which I had been looking forward to pretty much ever since they announced it. A game on iOS and Android based on Animal Crossing was kind of a dream come true in terms of Nintendo bringing one of their franchises to mobile. I mean, that's the perfect fit. And, they may not have done it perfectly, but I think they managed to kind of boil down that core Animal Crossing experience to a mobile game. And I think that cycle of kind of, doing chores for your neighbors, picking fruit, catching bugs, and catching fish, they did a good job of kind of further gamifying it. There's a little few too many numbers and bars you gotta fill up, and it doesn't feel as it feels a little more mechanical than it did in the previous games. But it's cool that they brought in features from New Leaf, such as building the amenities and the different parts for your campsite, and the Happy Home Designer elements as well, with needing to kind of tailor your camp to each neighbor in order to appeal it to them personally. Yeah. So, I mean, I sunk quite a bit of time into that game. I've kind of fallen off of it, but I think once they add more stuff with updates, which they've already done with the gardening, I think that game's only going to get better. My next game is The End Is Nigh, which was a platformer from Edmund McMillen, the creator of Super Meat Boy. It had a bit of an apocalyptic theme to it. It had Macmillan's usual kind of dark humor. And it was a really great platformer in the vein of Super Meat Boy. It very much felt like Super Meat Boy. Had the same kind of tight controls, the same challenge for sure. And yeah, it had some really great music as well from Ridiculon. And just kind of carried on that tradition of really great retro style platforming from Macmillan. I picked that up pretty much as soon as it came out and was quite impressed with it. The next game is really great. I haven't put nearly enough time into this as I should. It's called Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is a Metroidvania style game. It's a 2D platformer again. It's got really great atmosphere, fantastic art style, some of the best hand-drawn visuals I've seen this side of, Ori and the Blind Forest, Cuphead. I think it's right up there with those games. I think that 2D games have really, really come a long way. Ever since, I want to say, Rayman Origins, Child of Light, those games really kind of raised the bar for 2D games and kind of opened the door for animation to really kind of replace sprites. Not replace sprites, but, be recognized on the same level as regular sprites. And now that we've seen hand-drawn animation make its way into games because technology is allowing that, I think it's really making for some really beautiful games. And it's great to see that, that's finally becoming a thing, because I've always loved 2D games. And even when I was a kid, I never really saw games going in this direction of big 3D photorealistic games. I always kind of assumed games would start looking more like cartoons and more like hand-drawn animation. So it's really nice to see a lot of games going in that direction. Next is not something I expected at all, but Puzzle Fighter on the iOS platform. I'd never played Puzzle Fighter on the PlayStation 1. Would never even really thought I'd be a fan of it. I mean, it looked interesting enough. I've always loved puzzle games. Tetris, Puzzle League, Medios, but Puzzle Fighter really kind of jumped out at me as a mobile game that I could totally get into, because it's got really solid match 3. Well, it's not really match 3. It's more like columns. Like if you've ever played Columns on the Genesis, it's basically that. But just really solid, simple puzzle mechanics, but easy to learn, hard to master kind of thing, right? And it's got a ton of really addictive features that normally I don't like seeing in mobile games, or especially in bigger, higher priced games. But because this game's free to play, I really don't mind these kinds of mechanics. You've got a lot of Hearthstone style mechanics like daily quests, unlocking characters, leveling up your abilities, and leveling up your characters as well. And it's just super addictive. It's really got its hooks into me. And yeah, it's a surprise hit for me this year for sure. Yeah. So that's the 10 through 6. We move on to the top 5. My number 5, Sonic Mania. This was a amazing return to form for 2D Sonic games. It's something I've been waiting for a very long time. Christian Whitehead is a developer who's been working with Sega for a while to bring games like Sonic 2 and Sonic CD to newer platforms, into mobile platforms, and he's actually completely reprogrammed those engines so that they work better on modern platforms. And they finally let him take a stab at an actual new Sonic game, and it just went amazing. Along with Pagoda West Games, he managed to make something really amazing. Something that was really a true-to-form Sonic game that really does the series justice. It has some really amazing nods to older levels and really expands on the ideas of those Genesis-era Sonic games in really cool ways. And it has all that great music from the Genesis games as well, and some new stuff from a guy named Tiago Lopez, who I think does that stuff justice as well. And honestly, I think it's the best Sonic game in more than 20 years. So if you haven't played it, if you're at all a fan of the Genesis Sonic games, you definitely need to give this one a try. And if you've given up on Sonic, there is still hope. So thank you, Christian Whitehead, for giving us all reason to believe again. Next is another amazing return to form Metroid: Samus Returns. This was something we've been waiting for since the Game Boy Advance days. A new 2D Metroid. Nintendo was not willing to make it themselves. Intelligent Systems is a little too caught up making Fire Emblem games these days, but thankfully Mercury Steam out of Spain stepped up. Originally they wanted to do a remake of Super Metroid, which would have been amazing, but I guess Nintendo wanted to do Metroid 2. But, you know, this game breathes new life into SR388, and that environment and that story really pops on the 3DS. It really comes to life in new ways, and it brings everything that you want in a Metroid game to the table. All the action you want with new mechanics, like the counter mechanic, which like fits in perfectly. All the atmosphere you want, that feeling of isolation, it's all there. The music is amazing. It does a really good job of kind of bringing the 2D Metroids and the aesthetic and the sound design from the Metroid Prime games together as well. So yeah, Samus Returns, good stuff. Next, we have Nidhogg II. Nidhogg II was a sequel I didn't know I needed. Nidhogg was an amazing Atari-style fencing game with very simple but very deep at the same time mechanics. It was very difficult to master that game, and it was different every single time, and it was just one of the best couch multiplayer games I think I've ever played. Nidhogg 2 brought even more variety to the table because it added new weapons, and not just the fence, you know, the rapier for fencing, but you get the broadsword, you get a dagger, and you get a bow and arrow. And it just, excuse me, it just, you know, adds even more depth to an already stellar fighter. Excuse me. And it's got some fantastic sprite work. It, you know, goes from the kind of Commodore Atari look of the original Nidhogg to more of Super Nintendo, almost PlayStation 1 level of 2D sprite art, and it looks amazing. It's some of the best sprite art I've seen this year, actually. Really great music, too. And they also fixed the online mode, which is great. I haven't played it online in a while, so I don't know if anyone's still playing it, but Nidhogg 2 improves on what I already consider to be a couch multiplayer classic. Next, this came out of nowhere for me as well. Fortnite Battle Royale. This game was, you know, something that I was already kind of interested in because of PUBG, but I did not expect to be as into a Battle Royale game as I was. Like, I heard how good it was. I heard how good PUBG was, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, that is. But I didn't want to make the plunge, you know, I didn't want to pay upwards of $40 for an early access game that I didn't know whether it was going to run well. I didn't know whether or not I'd really like it, because it's kind of more of a military sim type of game. But Fortnite's got a much more cartoony style, much more approachable. Obviously, it's free to play. And it got its hooked into me like crazy. Like, it's just such a great spin on the shooter that, like, it almost, like I've said it before, it almost has like a roguelike quality to it, because there's so much more risk involved. It's all or nothing, right? Like, you drop onto an island with nothing. You have to scavenge not only for weapons, but in this game for materials, so you can actually build your own base if you want to, which is, it just adds this amazing depth and dimension to it that I don't think PUBG really has. And it's just like, the risk reward just adds so much more tension and so much more excitement, and like, when you actually manage to get a kill, it's just so satisfying. And I mean, the few times you actually manage to win a game, it's just like, you feel like you're on top of the world. You feel like you've conquered like impossible odds, and it's really a great feeling, and it makes me excited to see Battle Royale come to other games. I would love to see Red Dead Redemption 2 have a Battle Royale mode in its multiplayer. I'd love to see what other games do with this concept, and, you know, where other games take this. So it's made me very excited, and it's also made me really want to try Battlegrounds as well. Yeah. So Fortnite, a huge surprise hit for me. It's fun to play with other people too. It's just a really great game, and I can play it on my PS4 or my PC. It's great, and my account even carries over, which is amazing. Now, the number one game, I'm sure most people can probably predict this. It is, of course, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, which I could do an entire video on this game. I've sunk well over 150 hours into it. Until Miiverse closed, I had a pretty great collection of screenshots I'd taken, because this game is just awe-inspiring at times. The systems that they managed to put into place to create this believable world that you can just explore at your leisure and just have an adventure in is just really, really amazing. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before, and to see like this series that I grew up with like reach these heights, and to see them do it really the first time that they decided to break the mold is just amazing. It's more than I ever could have possibly expected, in terms of a Zelda kind of breaking the mold, going against the grain, trying new things, but I never expected them to succeed like they did, and I never expected them to really capture like the real core of what I love about Zelda, which is exploration and discovery. And I personally think Twilight Princess really reached the height of I think I said this already in Rob's video. Like, it really reached the height of dungeon and boss design in terms of the formula that they kind of trapped themselves in over the years. So I think that breaking the mold was inevitable. I think it was necessary. But I never expected them to take that open world genre and just not only turn it on its head, but just like come up with all these amazing new ideas about how to approach player agency and player choice. And I don't want to go into too much detail about it, because I honestly think people should play it for themselves. But I've never played another game that really just captures that sense of losing yourself in a world and just constantly being like, what's over that hill? What's behind that tree? Like, what's in that ruin? It's just, it's hard to explain. And I mean, there's plenty of videos that have gone into it much better than I ever could hope to. But yeah, Breath of the Wild did everything right, in my opinion. I really think that the minor flaws that it has are so glaringly overshadowed by how many innovative new ideas it brings to the table, and how colossal a shift it is in not just Zelda's design philosophy, but in Nintendo's design philosophy. I think it's a very good sign of things to come, and I'm overjoyed that the Switch has been such a success alongside this new Zelda game. It makes me wish that I, maybe bought some Nintendo stock back in those Wii U games, or Wii U days rather, because it looks like they've got a pretty good year ahead of them. Anyway, that is my top 10 games of 2017. Surprisingly easy to make for me. I really thought I'd have to, kind of try harder to think of 10 games that really impressed me this year, but this was an amazing year for games. And the craziest thing is, there's more games that I didn't play this year that probably would have made it onto this list. That I could probably think of 20 games just off the top of my head that I didn't even play this year that look amazing. Cuphead, obviously, is one, and there's many others, obviously. Super Mario Odyssey is another. There's also a lot of games I played this year that didn't come out this year, but that I didn't play until 2017. I might make another video about them. The Last of Us was one of them, and that game definitely surprised me as well. I liked it not for the reasons I thought I would. So yeah, I might make a video on my thoughts of The Last of Us as well, but that's better saved for another video. Anyway, I know this was a little low tech, but I hope you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe to be recommended more of my videos. And happy 2017. And yeah, I'm very optimistic going into 2018. I hope you are too. and happy gaming. Peace out.